Great good morning, everyone. It is 9:09 a.m. on my Cordaro Jewelers watch. This beautiful Wednesday, April 15th, tax day. Yeah. Year of our Lord 2026. This is the Bob Cordaro Show. I am he, and it's a big day to fight for America, defend our values, and honor, with the help of our man John Basiliga and his great Serenity Care senior care community, the brave who have made us and kept us free. People like veterans we've lost this year, but celebrate today thanks to John, like Lambert Troiani, Jessup, Robert Hughes, Kingston, Robert Bob Fioretti, Hazelton, Lawrence Wolcheski, Hazel Township, and Larry Long, Bloomsburg. The United States of America. The country founded with a certain knowledge and understanding by our incredible, amazing, irreplaceable founding fathers who understood that government was not only a hindrance, but a threat to freedom, to individual self-expression. And they expressed that in our amazing Constitution. So with history, our amazing founding fathers, who we will not allow to be canceled, and the incomparable Constitution of the United States of America as our guides, let us continue today's battle. A reminder, this Bob Cordaro Show, it'll always be convincingly conservative, lovingly logical, proudly and passionately patriotic, and reliably right. And so we gavel together this meeting of the Club for Common Sense, promising you that our deep and abiding commitment to common sense will indeed provide a sanctuary of sanity for all of you. In a world where the media, the Democrat Party, the whole party, academia, public unions, at least their leadership, have all gone insane and are telling you that up is down and down is up. But we've got the sanctuary for you. So, very interesting as Trump talking, and again, we all know this, whether you love him or whatever. One of his faults is that he cannot stop talking. So he's given these messages about the war basically being over. And in many ways it is. I think other than civilian infrastructure, which there is no such thing in Iran, other than civilian infrastructure, which is power and water and all that, which is controlled by the government, which is used by the government to punish and reward in Iran, there's very few target packages that we can hit. It's one of the reasons Trump took the 2-week delay, ceasefire, whatever you want to call it. There was nothing else to hit. And I really think it was a judo move. What was the strength of Iran? What was their point of leverage? The Strait of Hormuz. Well, Trump said, well, guess what? I'm going to close the Strait of Hormuz. And it's going to have dire effects on the governing slime of Iran. I want to go back to this this thing with the Pope because it really, really irritates me as a Roman Catholic. That now a second leader in a row, our Pope, is, I want to say this kindly, but is a left-winger who doesn't have any perspective, who doesn't have any balance in his worldview, who doesn't have any historical backing for things he says. It's just left-wing lunatic pablum. I rewatched because my friend Mark Mayer sent me Bill O'Reilly's take on the Pope. Bill O'Reilly, also Catholic. And it was identical to mine. Like, where is your concern about Islamist fanatics who want to bring about the end of the world by developing nuclear weapons? I don't understand it. And these are people. Oh, by the way, another thing happened, and it's right in line with the Pope and his ridiculous pronouncements. The Iranians, with the help of the Europeans and the United Nations, the Iranians are on a number of civil rights. This is the country that just killed about 5,000 of their people. They have been voted in on a number of rights committees in the UN, including women's rights. It's so insane. You say, what do we do with these people? And they say, well, Trump is mean to the NATO countries. The NATO countries are sick. They're absolutely insane. Iran on the Women's Rights Committee. There's not any even potential logic to that. It's just like the Pope. He's saying nothing about slaughter of Christians in Nigeria. He's saying nothing about the brutality and outright evil of the Iranian regime. He says, well, I don't attack anybody. Well, you attack the United States. We're the country at war with Iran. They just getting into crazy territory. Somebody said when the Iranian regime takes the side of the Pope, that should tell you all you need to know. I mean, this man's a fool. He is a fool. He's a blind fool. And we're stuck with him in the papacy for the rest of his life. And that's coming off Pope Francis. Now, I've got to say about Pope Francis, and I'm looking for the goodness in this Pope. He seems, well, you could see the goodness in Pope Francis. You could see an actual humbleness that he understood nothing about history or politics or geopolitics was sad and obvious. Unreal. I mean, it's nuts. Oh, by the way, as I speak about this idiocy out of the Vatican, we've got David DeCosmo on today to talk about the Titanic. It is that anniversary. I'm trying to really think if it's the anniversary when it struck the iceberg or the anniversary when it sunk, which was early morning. He'll let us know. But a lot more to talk about. We got Rick Bigelow on today, and battles that you may not have heard of in World War II. Of course, we got our great veterans tributes and much more. And the live stream, I've got my Camp Freedom shirt on today. The live stream of the program is brought to you by our friends at Roach Supply. They are the premier bath and kitchen supplier in Northeast Pennsylvania. They're celebrating 75 years in business, which means they're good at what they do. Well, I'll go a little further. They're great at what they do. They are honest, and their prices are great. And that's a family-owned business. We're into the fourth generation. Visit roachsupply.com, ROCHE supply.com. We'll take a break and be back. This date, 1957, Murph tells us Sun Records released Jerry Lee Lewis's version of Whole Lotta Shakin' Going On. The original tune performed by a female American R&B singer named Big Maybelle in 1955. Bulldog, at some point we got to find that version. Big Maybelle, I love that, just the name alone. Someone texts in, Bob, the Pope, no foreign policy experience, trying to be relevant to please the left-wing global community. The Pope needs to concentrate on moral issues. Amen. And by the way, if you want to say war is always bad and don't attack Iran or that's not the solution, I get that. That's your job. But if you're going to attack United States policy, if you're going to prove that you're a left-wing lunatic, Pope Leo, then give us the balance of the slaughter of Christians throughout the world, the insane oppression and evil of the Iranian regime. More people, more Iranians have been killed by the Iranian government this year than by the United States military. So if you have no balance, no history, no context, and you just want to blurt out nonsense, gibberish, there's your problem. And here's on the other side, here's a left-wing lunatic. Poor Bob, you're backing the wrong guy. I'm not backing a guy. See, this is why you're so stupid, because you cannot listen. I'm not backing a guy. I'm backing a policy which is going to save you and your family, or certainly could, we certainly hope so, from an apocalypse that the Iranian regime was going to try to bring about. But you don't care about any of that. And they say your hate is starting to play out. Well, no, yours is. It's playing out right now. Keep bashing the Pope, you good Catholic. Yeah, I'm going to bash him. If he's a fool, he's going to get bashed. I don't care who he is. I really don't care. That position does not, obviously, sadly, does not give him any wisdom. Zero. And again, I know there's never context with left-wing lunatics. There just isn't. But if you're going to criticize the United States for not continuing to negotiate because peace is always the answer, if you're not going to acknowledge, that's what I'm saying, you're the Pope. You're the head of the Catholic Church, and you cannot acknowledge evil? You can maybe prescribe a different way to approach it, but you cannot ignore it. It's your job to confront evil. It's your job. My mother's telling me to stop talking about the Pope. No. He's wrong. And he's an awful influence. And he should stick to what he knows, because he doesn't know anything about this subject, obviously. How do you criticize America for taking this absolutely necessary, essential action to prevent an apocalypse? And don't bring in the context of what the Iranian leadership is all about and what they've done. And here's another listener. Left-leaning Leo is quick to shame America in this war, and yet stays silent on the abortion, child mutilation culture that is the left, says Tom from Dallas. Amen. Amen. It's ridiculous. It's foolish. It's the kind of idiocy that just should not happen from someone that has been elevated to that level. No balance, no context, no history, nothing. It's ridiculous. Shame. Let's quickly go to Luciano. Hi, Luciano. How are you?
Thank you, Bob, for taking my call. Listen to everybody out here. Listen, I went to Catholic school for 8 years. All my whole family's Catholic, traditional, practicing Catholics, most of them. Let me tell you what EWTN. This is Catholic news. People that are Baptist, Methodist, and Lutheran. This EWTN, as you know, Bob, is a Catholic news nationwide out of Alabama, a very conservative state. I think Birmingham. This is what they showed 2 days ago. And by the way, Catholic radio goes throughout Luzerne County, Susquehanna. Pope Francis, they have him on tape saying that all roads lead to heaven. 2 days ago on EWTN, Catholic News, these two reporters, one being a lady and a man, I was watching it, I stress, showed the Pope Leo walking into a mosque in Algeria. This is a country, people, a Muslim country. He gladly was told to take off his shoes. He took off his shoes before entering the mosque in Algeria. I repeat, this was shown on EWTN.
Okay, go ahead, Lee. Come on, we're running short on time.
He took off his shoes and walked in one of the clergy, Muslim, whatever they call those people, and bowed down and walked around the mosque, entered and stayed there a while, walked out, and then put on his shoes. What a disgrace! And these Catholic
I'm not agreeing with you there. Respecting another religion is a completely different subject.
I know what you mean.
Ignoring history, fact, truth, and reality, which all left-wingers do, that's my problem. But always a pleasure, my man. We got to take this break because we got a Veterans Tribute. We got the weather. We got David DeCosmo on the anniversary of the sad anniversary of the Titanic. We're going to do all of that when we come back. It's the Bob Cordaro Show. Our Veterans Tribute, brought to you this hour and every hour, this day and every day, by our man John Basiliga. Today we feature his great Serenity Care personal care community. 4 locations in the Mid-Valley area of Lackawanna County. Old Forge, Wyoming, Kingston. Personal care services and dementia care services at the Mid-Valley and Kingston locations. All 4 personal care locations have been completely renovated inside and out, accepting new residents in an all-inclusive monthly rent. John has a passion for providing the highest quality senior care in the area and beautiful personal care homes for seniors to live in. Serenity Care, the gold standard for senior living in Northeast Pennsylvania. Lambert Troiani. He was 91 when we lost him March 29th. Devoted husband, father, grandfather, great-grandfather. His life was centered on family and quiet strength. Born in Provincia di Perugia, Italy, he was a graduate of Jessup High School class in 1952. Prior to retirement, he worked at Tobyhanna Army Depot. Lamberto proudly served in the United States Navy during the Korean conflict, an experience that reflected his sense of duty and commitment. He was preceded in death by his loving wife, Elaine Russin Troiani, with whom he built a home filled with care, dedication, and lasting memories. Surviving are his 4 children, 9 grandchildren, 4 great-grandchildren, who will continue to carry forward his legacy and the values he cherished. Lambert will be remembered for his enduring love of family, his steady presence, and the impact he made on those who knew him. Lambert Troiani, our great veteran this hour. That tribute brought to you by John Basiliga and his great Serenity Care personal care community. AccuWeather forecast brought to you by our friends at Montage Mountain Resort. Today, very warm with periods of clouds and sunshine. Thunderstorm in spots late this afternoon. Thunderstorms can bring localized damaging wind gusts, so be careful. High 84. Tonight, cloudy, a shower and thunderstorm down to 63. Tomorrow, Thursday, very warm with times of clouds and sun. 89 is the high, low 62. It cools down from there Friday. Mostly cloudy and warm with a passing shower or two. High 74, low 52. Saturday, clouds followed by a brightening sky and remaining very warm. Now, this conflicts with Joe Snedeker, who says it's going to get cooler on Saturday. AccuWeather saying it's going to be 82 with a low of 53. Sunday, on and off rain and drizzle in the morning, otherwise cloudy and cooler. High 62, low 33. And I guess it's supposed to be even into the 40s next week. So this beautiful weather, enjoy it. And that is your weather, brought to you by our friends at Montage Mountain Resort, who are swinging in to all kinds of great spring activities. And it's 68 at Montage Mountain Resort. Well, you hear the March of the Cue Balls by Henry Mancini, and when you hear that, you know it's David DeCosmo. David, how are you, my friend?
Hey, doing well, thank you, Bob, and thanks for having me back on this memorable anniversary.
Yeah.
It's 114 years today since the Titanic sunk, and as you probably remember, I have some close ties with the Titanic, having interviewed one of the survivors, a local survivor, back in 1972. But today I wanted to talk to you about 2 guys who missed the Titanic, 2 Pennsylvania boys. One, a businessman, actually put a down payment on a ticket for which he received what looks like a golden ticket. You're thinking about Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. And that man was called back early, and that was Milton Hershey. So,
really? Wow.
Yep. Yeah. So we could have, we might be today without Hershey Kisses had he made his reservation. That ticket, by the way, is on display at the Hershey Museum. Now, most people have heard of the unsinkable Molly Brown. There's been movies about her. Molly Brown, very wealthy socialite who not only survived the sinking of the Titanic, but was in a lifeboat with 24 other people, room for 65, and she begged the seamen to go back to try to pick up some of the others who were in the water, and they refused to do so, feeling that there was a danger the boat would be swamped. But she also raised money later for survivors, and she also came up with money for a reward for the captain of the Carpathia, the ship that saved the 715 Titanic survivors. So again, Molly Brown's name is well known, but many people don't remember her husband, Joseph J.J. Brown, a mining engineer who ran what was known as the Little Johnny mine in Leadville, Colorado, made a fortune in silver and gold, and consequently, although his name was Joseph, he came to be known as Johnny Brown. Well, Johnny Brown was born in Waymart, right there near Carbondale. Yeah. He was homeschooled until his family moved to the great metropolitan area of Pittston, where he studied at St. John's Academy, and also paid for night schooling, which led to his degree as a mining engineer. But James or Johnny Brown and Molly were separated, and so he was not on board the Titanic. And another Pennsylvania man, as a matter of fact, very local when we think of those growing up years in Pittston, when he learned that Molly had survived, he is quoted as saying, "She's too mean to sink." Of course, they've been separated. They never were formally divorced, but they were separated for a couple of years when the Titanic went down. And there were about a dozen to 15 people on board who were headed here to the Wilkes-Barre area, including the lady that I interviewed, Mrs. Thelma Thomas, back in 1972. So, and most of those headed here survived. Thelma Thomas's brother-in-law, Charles Thomas, who was bringing her and her infant son to Wilkes-Barre, he did perish. As a matter of fact, his body was never recovered. Ironically, Bob, there's a memorial stone to Charles Thomas in St. Mary Cemetery, and it's unique. They never found his body, so he's not buried there, but there's a memorial stone for him. But they got the date of his death wrong, so if you look at the stone, he perished a couple days before the Titanic went down, which, of course, is inaccurate.
David, now you interviewed people. You've studied the history of this fatal accident. Did you see that the Leonardo DiCaprio version of the Titanic?
Yes, absolutely.
It seemed very accurate.
It was. The research into that movie was really intense. And, it's amazing because the last Titanic survivor died in 2009. And she used to go around and talk about the Titanic and what happened there. But when she was on the Titanic, Bob, she was 3 months old. So she didn't have any cognitive memory of the sinking. But it was the most accurate depiction. If you look at the records, there were 2 hearings, one in Washington, one in England, about the sinking and why it happened. And there were many survivors who claimed that the ship never broke in half. And yet there were many, many more that said, yes, we saw it break in half. So even those who had first-person experiences with that disaster recalled it differently. And you mentioned DiCaprio. The bodies that were picked up in the water, most of those bodies from the Titanic are buried in Halifax, Nova Scotia. And the most visited grave there is a grave, they call it the grave of the unknown child. It was a little boy whose body was the fourth recovered, and the crew of the recovery ship, the Mackie Bennett, asked if they could pay for a special memorial, and it's there. Ironically, we now know the actual body that's in, or the remains that are in that tomb, because of DNA and some investigation that was done. It was the body of Sidney Leslie Goodwin, a little boy from England. But the second most visited grave in that graveyard, that cemetery, is the stone that says J. Dawson. Now, DiCaprio's character was of course John Dawson, and right after that movie came out, there were all kinds of flowers and movie tickets left at that grave, because there was a lot of folks, mainly young ladies, who associated that grave with Leonardo DiCaprio. Well, actually, of course, there was no Johnny Dawson. That was a fictitious name.
He and Rose was mythical.
Yeah, this was the grave of Joseph Dawson, who worked in the engine room on the Titanic. Now that the movie's been out for a while, I don't know that they have the same kind of memorials being placed there.
Well, that's neat. That is neat. And there's always a Northeast Pennsylvania connection. Always. Yeah, no matter what the incident. Incredible.
Absolutely. And, Bob, 17 years or so before the Titanic went down, a guy wrote a book called Futility. And it's a real crazy story. I finally was able to read it. But the basic facts of the story, or situation of the story, is that there's a brand new ocean liner headed out on its maiden voyage, strikes an iceberg, doesn't have enough lifeboats for the people, and sinks. And the name of the ship in that book was the Titan. And, of course, the Titan is also the name of the submersible that imploded a couple years back going after the Titanic.
Amazing stuff. David DeCosmo, you are history, and we love you, and we're so happy you remembered to come on to talk about this again this year. We love it.
I appreciate it, Bob. Thanks. Hope all your news is good.
All right. David DeCosmo, check out his daily blog on Facebook. It is enjoyable. I love it, David. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Bye-bye.
All right. We'll take a break. We'll be back. It's the Bob Cordaro Show. Jackie DeShannon. Murph tells us this date, 1965, she released that lovely song, What the World Needs Now. Bob Cordaro back with you. Somebody texted in, Bob LTS from Mountaintop. I love the David DeCosmo segments. They're informative and always worth knowing. He's smart and articulate, and we need more like him, a true gentleman. And thank you, David. Amen. He's great. He really is. Somebody else on the same subject, down in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, there's a giant memorial of the Titanic, and it's a museum. Awesome to see. I mean, it says so many things to so many people, the Titanic. It describes tragedy. It describes people disgracefully facing death, and then beautifully facing death, and then courageously facing a certain death. It has all the elements of life to it. The hubris of mankind. This unsinkable ship sinks on its first voyage. Really remarkable. I think that's why it captures all of us. And why we get it, why it's important to us, why we care about it to this day. By the way, just reminding you, Roach Supply, ROCHE, you go to roachsupply.com. They're the premier bath and kitchen supplier in Northeast Pennsylvania. They've been at it for 75 years, which means they're great at what they do. Ron Roach, veteran, he still goes up there and gets the job done. It's amazing. Generation after generation of the Roach family. roachsupply.com. Someone texts in, Bob. Well, no, not someone. Inspector guy texts in. Bob, another shout out to the Mountaintop American Legion Post, 781. They sponsored the fishing derby on Monday for handicapped children, and Tuesday the VA veterans. Great time had by all LTS. And Inspector guy, next year you got to call in advance. I wasn't on Monday, but I would love to promote. It really is an amazing event. When I had the old TV show, we followed Pennsylvania Outdoor Life, which I guess is no longer on. And that great show featured this Mountaintop American Legion. And you just said, man, it's just beautiful. 2 days in a row of just pure sacrifice and fun for people who need it a lot. By the way, don't forget, if you're thinking Florida, we had her on yesterday, Tina Morocco. She's global sales advisor at Sotheby's International in Naples, Florida. You could reach her through the Sotheby's International website or her own deal, Tina Morocco, MURACCO.com. And as I look at my Bacardo Jewelers watch, it tells me, 10 o'clock, time for the news with Brian Hughes. Let's do that, and then we will come back. It's the Bob Cordaro Show. Great good morning, everyone. It is 10:07 a.m. on my Cordaro Jewelers watch. This beautiful Wednesday, April 15, tax day, year of our Lord 2026 here in the Northeast. This is the Bob Cordaro Show. I am he, and it's a big day to fight for America, defend our values. And with the help of our man, John Basiliga, and his great Serenity Care personal care community, to honor the brave who have made us and kept us free. People like veterans we've lost this year, but celebrate today, thanks to John. So with history, our amazing founding fathers who we will not allow to be canceled, and the incomparable Constitution of the United States of America as our guides. Let us continue today's battle by gaveling back to order this meeting of the Club for Common Sense after that brief news adjournment, promising you that our deep and unalterable commitment to common sense will provide a sanctuary of sanity to all of you who hearken, hear, and get it. Quite amazing. Someone touching base on this Pope thing and the Catholic Church. And then, look it. I've said this before. It bears repeating. In fact, it's critical to repeat. The Catholic Church or any institution can be degraded or corrupted by man. It does not change the mission or the greatness of that institution. And I believe that of the Catholic Church. But somebody pointing out, didn't the Catholic Church take in billions from moving migrants around the world? What are they doing with all the money? How many churches have they reopened? What are they doing to help Catholic people out? I know. But in any event, we are fortunate because we've got a guy named Rick Bigelow. Now, he's a patent attorney by trade, and there's not many of those. He's essentially a nuclear scientist, a rocket scientist, which is a prerequisite to being a patent attorney. So he knows a lot about a lot, but he loves history. His father was a veteran. We paid tribute to him. Rick won't let me do it for him because he was a veteran. But he's here. It is now. And we've got the Battle of Scheldt back in 1944. And here he is, our man, Rick Bigelow. Rick, welcome back to the program.
Glad to be with you, Bob.
Well, Rick, this is something that many people have not heard about. So tee it up.
Okay, yeah, this is the Battle of the Scheldt that happened in October and November of 1944. And actually, this is all about logistics. You know, Rommel famously said the battle is won by the quartermasters or the logisticians well before the first shot is ever fired. And General Bradley said, amateurs talk tactics, professionals talk logistics. Yeah. So in September of 1944, we were progressing so far towards the east, towards Germany, that we were starting to outstrip our supply lines. And everything had to come in over the beaches at Normandy. And we eventually opened up Cherbourg, but Cherbourg was even further from the front than were the beaches at Normandy. And then, of course, one of the artificial harbors was destroyed by a storm. And every time the waves went up in the channel, it slowed down the logistics and so on and so forth. So it was really vital to capture some of the ports along Hitler's West Wall, or pardon me, Atlantic Wall, so that we could get our logistics into our troops as they were advancing. In fact, the advance had pretty much stalled by the early part of September of 1944. So we were progressing so quickly that Montgomery's 21st Army Group actually took the port of Antwerp almost intact because the Germans didn't have time to destroy it. So let me talk a little bit about Antwerp. Antwerp is one of the largest ports in Europe. It's about 60 miles inland from the North Sea, and it goes through something called the Scheldt Estuary, or the river Scheldt. At the time, it was both the north and the south shore of the Scheldt were occupied by the Germans. So, despite the fact that we got this great port almost totally intact, the Germans held the estuary, and they had heavily fortified it, and especially along the North Sea coast, which was part of the Atlantic Wall. So there was no way that we were going to be able to bring our ships into there until we cleared the Scheldt. So we started. Montgomery assigned the Canadian First Army to take the ports along the Channel and along the North Sea, and we started to clear out the Scheldt Estuary in September of 1944. The Canadian First Army did, and then we stopped because this is when Market Garden took place, and Montgomery had to get some of the Canadian troops that were clearing out the Scheldt and vector them so that they could support Market Garden. So we did nothing clearing out the Scheldt Estuary for about a month, and of course we know that Market Garden didn't work out too well. It was a gamble to try to get into the Ruhr and quickly into Berlin, but it didn't work out. What we found out was that everybody thought the Germans were retreating, and it was going to be a cakewalk to get into Berlin, but they weren't retreating; they were regrouping, and so they put up a tremendous fight along the Market Garden salient, and so by the time Market Garden failed in late September, Montgomery said, "Okay, let's go back and we'll clear out the Scheldt." And of course, Eisenhower had been badgering Montgomery, get and clear out the Scheldt Estuary so that we can use Antwerp, because our advance had been stalled, and Bradley's 12th Army Group was stalled in the center, and in the south, Patton's 3rd Army had essentially run out of gas. So we really needed to get Antwerp open. So in October, about October 2nd, the Canadian First Army starts a campaign to clear out the Scheldt. Immediately, they get bogged down, and one of the issues was most of the Scheldt is in the Netherlands, and Netherlands is 30% underwater, and another 30% is prone to flooding. So it's not good tank country. It's not good country for quick, rapid maneuver warfare, and so on and so forth. So this was going to be a foot-slogging infantry endeavor by the Canadian First Army to clear out the Scheldt. So there was a 4-part plan to clear out the Scheldt Estuary, and the first part was that they needed to proceed northward from Antwerp and clear out a couple of the towns, and then they would proceed towards the west along the southern shore, and also along the west on the northern shore of the Scheldt. If you look at the Scheldt, the map of the Scheldt,
and we do have these maps on these maps are on our live stream, brought to you by Roach Supply, by the way.
Good. And if you look at the map, you see one spit of land comes out. It looks just like the Strait of Hormuz, a real choke point getting into Antwerp. And it's just like, every time you see a modern battle going on, you say, this has all happened before. And of course, not only did the Germans control both the north and the south shore of the Scheldt Estuary, they had also mined the entire river. So, I mean, like I said, it's all happened before. We've all seen this before, and none of this should surprise us when it happens. But anyway, since it was so damp, and it was starting to get cold, it was starting to snow, and so on and so forth. So it was really tough for the Canadian First Army, and they had to clear the whole estuary. You couldn't clear 90% of it or something like that, and especially when they got towards the entrance to the North Sea. That's where this one island was heavily fortified with pillboxes and bunkers and so on and so forth. And of course, the first question is, well, why didn't the Air Force go in and just bomb them into submission? The bunkers were so well constructed that Air Force bombing was of very little help. And it wasn't until they got some of the Navy battleships up into the North Sea that they were able to destroy some of the bunkers. So it was going to be a foot-slogging infantry event, and progress was very slow. And what had happened during Market Garden, since we weren't doing anything in the Scheldt, the Germans reinforced significantly. And I think this is where you say, if Montgomery, instead of embarking on Market Garden, had cleared the Scheldt, like Eisenhower wanted him to, it would have been much easier to do it in mid-September than in October and November, because it was only lightly fortified in the September time period. So they embark on this 4-part plan, going north and then to the west, and they take very slowly. They take all the lands leading up to this Walcheren Island, which was part of the Nazis' Atlantic Wall, and eventually there was only one causeway that went across, and of course the Germans had that pre-sighted with their artillery, and there were several attempts to get to this causeway, and as soon as one group would try to get across, they were obliterated. And so finally they had a combined land and sea campaign to attack Walcheren Island, and it looked just like attacking the D-Day beaches, because the Germans had all the obstacles in the water and all the mines and so on and so forth. And it wasn't until there was a very intensive aerial, naval, and shore bombardment that they were able to take Walcheren Island. And of course, the Germans flooded all the dikes, and so 90% of the island was underwater, and it was just a mess. And the Canadian First Army did a great job in taking the Scheldt and clearing the Scheldt estuary. So they finally cleared it, and it took almost 2 months for them to clear it, and it was tremendous combat. It was a lot of it was hand to hand, and eventually the Germans finally surrendered. And at this point in time, you say, well, the Germans knew the war was over and they were going to lose. Why didn't they just surrender? And it's because Hitler had put a process into force where if a commander surrendered, his family was going to be imprisoned, and many of them would be executed. So the German commanders and even some of the lower ranks couldn't really surrender. They almost had a fight to the death until it was clear that they had no longer had any ammunition or food or fuel or anything like that. So the Germans finally surrendered on November 8th of 1944. The Allied casualties were heavy, almost 13,000 Canadian and British, and included some 1,000 that were killed in action. Germans suffered about 13,000 casualties and 41,000 POWs, and basically they had run out of ammunition and food and fuel and so on and so forth. But the story doesn't end there, because after the battle, the port of Antwerp still wasn't opened. There were so many mines in the estuary that the Allies had to embark on a 3-week campaign to clear all the mines. They brought in 100 British, Dutch, Belgian, and British ships to clear the mines, and they participated in 20 major sweeps along the 60 miles into Antwerp. Finally, on November 28th, the Scheldt was declared free of mines. Ships began to dock at Antwerp, and noticeably, the first ship that landed that docked at Antwerp was a Canadian freighter, and there's a picture of it shown unloading drums of fuel, and of course a huge crowd of dignitaries gathered, including Montgomery, to mark the opening. But no one thought to invite the Canadians.
Who did all the work. And by the way, the reason we haven't heard of this battle in any great fashion is because it was mostly Canadian and some British.
Yeah, and some Polish. And of course, I mean, the Polish were always delighted to fight the Germans.
Yeah.
And so they were really good. But yeah, there wasn't much news coverage of this in the U.S., sort of like Market Garden, because there weren't that many there were virtually no American troops in this particular battle. But it was key to opening Antwerp, because almost immediately Antwerp supplied 50% of the logistics, and that allowed the advance to get going into Germany and into clear out the rest of Belgium. Antwerp was so key that it was one of the goals of Hitler's Walkthung on Rhine, which became known as the Battle of the Bulge. One of his key objectives in that big attack, which happened in December of 1944, was to retake Antwerp so that the Allies couldn't use it. So it was key, it was critical, and once again, logistics is the key to these major operations of World War II.
Well, Market Garden, not only that disaster led by and conceived of by Monty, not only led to the reshaping of Eastern Europe, very likely, but also caused us problems in Scheldt. It's quite amazing, the impact of one misstep on World War II. Rick Bigelow, thank you so much. This is the kind of thing you got to bring to people, because we never hear it. It doesn't come. They didn't make movies about it. Nothing,
Yeah, you're right. There's no movie that it's out of the consciousness.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you very much, Rick Bigelow. Patent attorney extraordinaire, but he's our historian. We love him. Thanks again, Rick.
Glad to do it, Bob.
All right. We'll take a break. It's the Bob Cordaro Show. Our Veterans Tribute this hour, as with every hour, this day as with every day, brought to you by our man John Basiliga. Today, featuring just another one of his great companies, Serenity Care, a personal care community, a senior care community with locations in the Mid-Valley section of Lackawanna County, also in Old Forge, Wyoming, and Kingston. Dementia care units at the Mid-Valley and Kingston locations. Totally renovated because John has a passion for providing the highest quality senior care in Northeast Pennsylvania. All-inclusive monthly rent, state-of-the-art private and semi-private rooms, suites, companion suites, individual heating, daily housekeeping and laundry service, freshly prepared restaurant-quality meals for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Serenity Care, personal care community. Honoring this hour, Staff Sergeant John Mikolajczyk. Born in Scranton, Pennsylvania, the eldest of three siblings. The family ran a corner store called Costanzi's Italian Market, South Webster Avenue near Connell Park. This family operation survived well into the 1980s, and that was his background, including his brother Walter working for A&P. After high school at the great Scranton Technical High School, John graduated from Cornell School of Business Management and was hired by Great Atlantic and Pacific Tea Company, better known as A&P, the dominant grocery store in Northeast Pennsylvania, 12 locations. He went from produce manager but had his career interrupted. He became a member of the infantry division in our U.S. Army in Eastern Europe during World War II with a classification as marksman under General George S. Patton. Part of his time was spent in the Battle of the Bulge and the Battle of Normandy. He was a recipient of the Purple Heart, recalled being nestled in a sniper's nest in battle and feeling a sensation like someone slapped his mouth and quickly wiped his chin. John was shot in the jaw, a bullet that struck so fast he didn't even know it until he saw the blood streaming. After these harrowing experiences, he returned to the States and resumed his position at A&P, management roles at various stores, including the first 24-hour supermarket in the area. 47 years with A&P, his only career. In 1954, he met Lucille Grabowski, a school teacher from Duryea. They had one son, Dale, my buddy, who's coming on momentarily, an aerospace engineer who's done it all in engineering and radio. Lucille temporarily recruited to teach parochial school, St. Rocco's in Pittston, then moved to St. Mary's in Manuka. After John retired from A&P in 1981, he had morning coffee and breakfast with other A&P alumni who got together at Burger King Old Forge every weekday for 20 years. As a tribute, Mayor Bob Legg and Bonnie and John Haluska, who created the Hometown Heroes program, hung his veteran banner directly in front of the restaurant where it stands today. An amazing life and career of John Mikolajczyk. And here is his only son, our man, Rusty Fender. Rusty, what an incredible life. And you were fortunate enough to participate in it, obviously.
You've been after me for 2 years to do this, and thanks so much. And I must say, Bob, if John were still alive, he would murder me and then come looking for you because he's such a low-profile guy. He'd kill us both, Bob. But the meaning was there. And, this is a time, Bob, where everybody And thank you again. People thank the veterans for their service, and I do. But, Bob, I thank you for your service as well with the veterans. And this is a time where I guess every sibling, every daughter, every son says, I wish I would have spent more time with them. At 21, I got my first job at WBRE and then shipped out to KNBC TV Channel 4 in Los Angeles. And then, I've spent a couple of years in Los Angeles running engineering there and then transferred to New York City and worked at the networks, for 28 years there. And I was never home. In fact, if and when I die, I say if and when I die, when they cremate me, the urn should read, "He was never around." But, the 27 years I spent right down the hall there from where you're sitting at this moment, Bob, at 98.5 KRZ and the other stations in your building, I saw them enough in those days. And, even 6 years ago, I left PennDOT to go back to New York and run Fox News for a year. So I guess there are some people who are just meant to be on the road. And I guess that comes from me being an only child. And also my folks being like 40 and 41 when they met. So it's kind of like, they were like my grandparents. And I didn't want to be one of these people, Bob, living in my mother's basement at 53. So I shipped out. And, people say, if I had to do it over again, well, I'm the other side of that. If I had to do it over again, Bob, I wouldn't change a thing.
Well, people forget it, and he was a driving force behind it. A&P was you had tons of locally owned supermarkets, the Scatinos and the Dick and Dan's and the Insulacos all upcoming. But you had this monster A&P, which your dad worked for. They were such a force in area food and marketing. It's incredible. People couldn't realize it as they look at the landscape today.
40,000 supermarkets coast to coast. 40,000. That's incredible. Just think, McDonald's is global, and they have 50,000. A&P had 40,000, and they made most of their products in Broome County up at the Horseheads, New York plant. Everything from Ann Page, which stood for A&P, Ann Page mayonnaise, and Jane Parker. They baked everything. Everything was done. And, Bob, they went the route. They were great to their employees. I remember I had my first job there in 1973, frozen food clerk, when minimum wage was $1.20, and they started me with A&P union at $3.73 an hour. I mean, they were just so good to their employees, just like Sears, just like Kmart, which became the same. All those old companies never kept up with technology, and they paid the price, unfortunately, for being kind to their employees. Now you have the Walmart philosophy that, has rarely any benefits except for the management. Everybody's part-time. Everybody's 32 hours a week. No benefits, no health care, no nothing. And that's the problem, Bob, which is a different story for a different chapter for a different time.
Yeah, but we digress. So let's talk about this coffee clutch at the Burger King in Old Forge. Every weekday for 20 years, Dad got together with A&P alumni, and those kind of gatherings are just so special. I know they happen all over our region, but here's one of them.
Exactly. And you go into any Arby's, any Wendy's, any McDonald's, and any Burger King in the morning, and all their regulars will be sitting in their booth. And my father, being right down the road in Duryea, was at Burger King every morning. And as a nice touch, the mayor of Old Forge, Mayor Robert Legg, installed his banner right in front of Burger King, where it stands to this day, about 6 years ago. And the folks in charge, of the banners in Old Forge, this was all, one big deal with them as well. And, Bonnie Haluska and John and everybody involved with City Council. I think that was a great lasting tribute to every croissant my father ever had at Burger King, Bobby.
Rusty Fender, did your dad ever talk about, beyond the little tale we told of his receiving the Purple Heart, receiving the injury that led to the Purple Heart, did he talk much about his service?
That's a great question, and I was ready for that question. No, he was very low key. He told me he was in the Battle of the Ball. I went, this this banner program came up, and I was contacted by, Bonnie and John and the mayor. I had to do a heck of a lot of digging to try and get something on my father. No, he didn't. He was really low key. I knew the battles he was in. He was a pet. But no, he really didn't. And I was a non-military guy. I was too young for the draft. The draft ended after Vietnam in '73. I never went. I wouldn't have gone anyway because I was an only child. So I was exempt from the military being an only child. No, he was never one of these guys that, when I was in Germany, I had my gun raised in. No, he was real. He talked more about A&P than he did about Germany.
And those experiences cannot be duplicated and can't be repeated. Not having hearing those stories. And you wish you could talk to them today and say, you don't realize what we're losing by you not telling the tales of what you experienced in World War II.
And therein lies the rub, and this is not meant to be patronizing to you. I know you're 50 years, but it's programs like yours that sorely lack these kind of people that will tell a story that will absolutely befuddle and bedazzle the younger generation, those who are interested in a career in the military. We sorely lose on many different fronts on this, Bob.
Rusty Fender, I say this very often referencing our veterans, and we could say it certainly regarding your dad, John. We shall, the old Dickens saying, we shall never see his like again. And I thank you for participating today and being part of honoring him at this 10:35 hour.
It was the greatest generation on the greatest radio program I'm on right now. Bob, thanks for 50 years of friendship, and thank you for your service, my friend.
My brother. All right, we'll take a break. Bob Cordaro, WILK. We will return. Frank and Nancy Sinatra, number one hit, Murph tells us this date, 1967. Bob Cordaro back with you. A number of comments. The A&P, somebody texted on, A&P had a huge presence in Scranton. That monster bakery on Vine Street, produce warehouse in the South Side, regional headquarters on Wyoming Avenue, contract trunking company, E&R, plus the stores. Yep. And the first thing I think of when I think of, I read a book, I'm forgetting the title. Something about fortune. And somebody points it out. Huntington Hartford was the heir of the A&P fortune. Turn of the century now. Turn of the last century. He was worth $600 million. And he blew it all. But the monuments to his expenditures include Paradise Island. You got to read the book. It's about Huntington Hartford. I'm forgetting. I read it cover to cover. Paradise Island in the Bahamas, which is now, these are amazing resorts now. He also built on Columbus Circle in Manhattan. There's this building, you can't figure out what the hell's it all about. It was designed to be an art museum. And Huntington Hartford paid for it. Has no windows. It's the oddest building. Nobody knows what to do with it. In any event, yeah. But the A&P. And then someone else commenting on Rusty Fender. That guy is a true warrior because the real ones don't tell stories. I know it. And it's a shame. Great Veterans Tribute. We'll take this break because my Bacardo Jewelers watch say it's 10:50 on the nose. Nice. Murph tells us this date, 1968. Aretha Franklin recorded her hit Think at Atlantic Recording Studios, New York City. Bob Cordaro back with you on the program, and, of course, Abraham Lincoln. Amazing history. So I don't know if we're going to get to all of them because we touched on the Titanic, so we're going to we'll skip that. But Jackie Robinson, the first black Major League Baseball player, made his debut in 1947. Then the Boston Marathon bombing in 2013. And then the massive fire that engulfed Paris's Notre Dame Cathedral back in 2019. We got to get as many as we can. So, Bulldog, we'll skip the Titanic because we already covered it with David DeCosmo. But amazing day in history. Absolutely amazing. And let's go to the present day and talk to Bill from Pittston. Bill, how are you, brother?
Very good. I'll tell you, what a great show. I mean, unbelievable. Dave DeCosmo, your resident historian, and Rusty Sender. I mean, your show is informative, educational, and it really is entertaining. I mean, you really do a great job. I had to say that because I'm enjoying it.
I'm blushing. you can see it on the live stream. What's on your mind today, my man?
Well, I'll tell you, I was watching Mr. Smith Goes to Washington the other day and thinking, what a joke that is. Today, we rarely have anybody that enters the office, especially the radical Democrats. They're power-mad predators at best. They go in the office trying to seek their own aggrandization, and then, they seek out the weak, the vulnerable, and take up their cause, like people with the me generation. In the meantime, they're raping the women that they're supposed to be defending.
Oh, and Swalwell, who was a sociopath, that's what he is.
You could see it in his eyes.
Scum would be a descriptive that is above him. But here he is, he's quoted, and my man Gary sent these quotes in one spot. Sexual assault victims deserve respect. Then he says, no one is above the law. And he then asks, are you ready to stand up for women? And there's the one famous quote at a hearing. He's lecturing Republicans on the committee that you don't actually talk to women, do you? Insane.
If they ever did a psychiatric evaluation on most of these progressives, obviously they'd be narcissistic. You'd find a whole series of psychological disturbances. And yet the Democrats knew about Swalwell. They didn't like the guy.
Yeah.
He wasn't a team player at first, and they despised him. And yet they perpetuated his service in the Congress. It's just unbelievable that we've degenerated so much, and people continue to vote for these guys.
You look at the insane people on the Democrat side. Now, we had Marjorie Taylor Greene on the Republican side. Beyond that, you cannot. It is a rogues gallery. It is worse than the bar at Star Wars. The Democrat leadership. It's sickening. It's absolutely sickening who these people are.
Yeah, it's just incredulous that people continue to champion these guys. And, when you think about just listening to that piece on Johnson, a drunk, and, it just amazes me that this guy, it was, of course, part of the legal system that he become president. But it's just so frightening to see how many idiots we had as presidents. And
but we topped them all with Joe Biden. I didn't think we could top many of them. We topped all of them with Joe Biden. Hey, we got to go, my man. It is 11 o'clock and change on my Picardo Jewelers watch. Guys, check the place out. It's the most beautiful watch store you're going to see. And their jewelry selection and knowledge and craftsmanship, second to none. Picardo Jewelers, they tell me it's time for the news. We'll be back. You know it, baby. Great good morning, everyone. 11:07 a.m. on my Picardo Jewelers watch. This beautiful Wednesday, April 15, even though it's tax day, year of our Lord 2026. This is the Bob Cordaro Show. I am he, and it's a big day to fight for America, defend our values, and with the help of our man John Basiliga and his great Serenity Care Senior Care community, to honor the brave who have made us and kept us free. We celebrate them thanks to John. So with history, our amazing founding fathers, who we will not allow to be canceled, and the incomparable Constitution of the United States of America as our guides, let us continue today's battle. Gaveling back to order after that brief news adjournment, this meeting of the Club for Common Sense, promising that our deep and unalterable commitment to common sense will provide a sanctuary of sanity to all of you who listen. Yeah. So we're back. And I played that little ditty. And again, one of the I will call them haters because they really are useless. Average income tax refund went up $350 for 2026, not the thousands that Trump claims. Well, NBC News disagrees with you, even though they didn't give credit to the big mediocre bill. So once again, you lie. And that's where we go. By the way, somebody texted in Biden banner, stolen valor, disgrace. Don't let Page and her Greenridge neighborhood cronies defeat you and your listeners. They will not. We'll get to that later this hour. And it is important that we do so because especially with Rusty Fender calling in today for his dad, John, and pointing out he's got a hometown hero banner that he earned. That isn't a disgrace. That we could be proud of if you drive by the Burger King in Old Forge on Main Drag. Hey, quickly, we'd love to mention, because we love them, the Roach family and Roach Supply, premier bath and kitchen supplier in Northeast Pennsylvania, celebrating 75 years in business. They're on to the fourth generation. And 90-some-odd-year-old Ron Roach, who we love, veteran, still doing it, still getting it done, along with two additional generations of the Roach family. ROCHE, RoachSupply.com. Check them out. They are sponsoring the live stream, and I've got my Camp Freedom shirt on today. Cutie washes things so quickly. I could probably, make this like a uniform. She's taking it away and washing it before I even know it's dirty. I'm still in the mindset where I'm doing the wash. Anyway, hour brought to you by Tina Morocco. She's global advisor, sales advisor at Sotheby's International Real Estate, headquarters in Naples. In fact, I took a picture with her in front of their Naples office. Probably should post that. When I was down this past weekend, I said, we got to take a picture here. And then, oddly enough, Cutie and I didn't take a picture together. But anyway, you can check her out at Sotheby's International Naples or her own deal, Tina Morocco, MURACCO.com. And I can confirm to you, she knows Southwest Florida. Nobody knows it like her. I promise you that. All right, let's quickly go to the blower. We got Joe from Kingston. Joe, how are you?
Not too bad. How are you, Bob?
Doing great. Thank you.
I have to agree and disagree at the same time with you about Swalwell. I agree he's a scumbag. I agree that he's probably a sexual abuser, even though we really haven't seen anything come out yet as far as law goes. But, I think that we're a little bit hypocritical in your stance, considering that we do have a president that was found liable against E. Jean Carroll. But, that doesn't matter, right? He's not a scumbag, right?
I understand
right? He's not
that.
a scumbag, though, right?
I understand what you're saying, and it's a point to be made. I don't think there was any fairness in the trial, but I am not running Donald Trump for sainthood by any means. He's flaw after flaw after flaw, and I understand what they are. I never, and by the way, here's another part of it. I never heard Trump moralize about women, about sex, about any of that stuff. I've never heard him do that the way Swalwell did repeatedly. He's not a scumbag. He's beneath scum.
Did you hear what he just did on his golf course in front of his 17-year-old grandson?
No.
Well, over just 2 days ago, I believe it was, in front of his 17-year-old grandson, he started making comments about how a woman was so hot and took a second to go over and take a picture with her and put his arm around her and,
you sound like you sound like you got Trump derangement syndrome. You really do.
Of course I do.
I am not electing or supporting Donald Trump.
Like
Fine. Okay, so no.
Yeah.
Not even
He's
close. Not even
Bob.
close. You're
He's
an ass.
Bigger scumbag,
You're a
Bob.
total
You're
ass,
an ass.
Joe. God almighty. It takes just a few seconds for his sickness to come out, and then it came out. Some obscure story we don't even know is true about Trump. But they latch onto it. And by the way, what does it have to do with anything? See, I don't hear Trump moralizing about any of that stuff. And by the way, that is a huge difference. He doesn't talk about how moral he is, how he protects women. He just does what he does. He is who he is. And it's far from perfection. Sometimes silly, sometimes bawdy, sometimes whatever. Stupid. But his policies and the clarity of his vision in his policies, and they may not all be his, but he's pursuing them all. Please don't give me a comparison. He didn't support boys and girls locker rooms. He didn't support sociopath Swalwell did. He didn't support sexual mutilation. Apologize. This is crazy. Somebody said this left-wing wacko has TDS and shows up on Sue Henry's show every day and she lets him. He decided to give your show a shot. Yeah. You could hear the rage in the guy. I don't have any seething rage about Swalwell. I knew what he was. A beneath contempt subhuman. I knew it. It just took a bunch of women to prove it and to prove the depravity of the Democrat leadership for letting it happen and for continuing to support him because he hated Trump. You could do almost anything. Somebody texts in, was that ass offended by Swalwell being called a scumbag? Apparently so. He got upset. Oh, Swalwell. I mean, these people are out of their minds. They're out of their minds. There it is. There's Trump derangement syndrome. You just saw it. By the way, was Trump brought up in the discussion about Swalwell, other than the fact that Swalwell made his bones lying about Trump? See, that's what Trump derangement syndrome is. Well, they all turn, oh, but what about Trump? What about Trump? What? What about him? What do you want? one of the haters, why aren't you talking about Gonzalez? That's the Republican congressperson who resigned. He's just as big a scumbag as Swalwell. No, he's not. Not even close. He had an extramarital affair with a woman who then eventually took her life. We don't even know, by the way, nor do you, obviously, why she took her life, if it had anything to do with him. And he did the right thing and he resigned from Congress. But once again, he never moralized the way sociopath Swalwell did. He made his mistake and he resigned because of his mistake. Okay. That's being human. Swalwell, every moment of his life, every moment of his day is a lie or based on a lie. He's a sociopath. Trump, we talked about it. Serial exaggerator. He exaggerates every time he speaks, virtually every time he speaks. He was a womanizer and this and that and crude, all of that. Silly, vindictive, all of those things. But we are not going to find a perfect human. I mean, look at the Pope. He's got no concept, but he's blabbering on about subjects. And this is the Pope. So for President of the United States, you know what I'll take? I'll take common sense policies and I'll take gutsy delivery on those policies. And oh, by the way, and incredible guts to call out the lying scumbag policies of the Democrat Party and the individuals who pronounce those policies. Somebody takes in, I have Trump arrangement syndrome. All right, we'll take a break. Bob Cordaro, WILK. We will return. Creedence Clearwater Revival. Murph says they released their hit Bad Moon Rising this date, 1969. We've had it ever since, haven't we? And, of course, Jackie Robinson. You want to talk about guts? My gosh. And class. He embodied everything that an athlete and a role model should be under incredible pressure. Baseball's first black major league paid. Unbelievable. Unreal. Hey, let's go right to the phones. We got Bob from Pittston. Hi, Bob. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Great.
Listen, I just heard that comparison about Donald Trump and Eric Swalwell, and I just couldn't stand the fact that nobody sticks. I agree with Donald Trump, but I look at him like a scale. You have to look at the good that he does and then put it up against the things that he says.
Yep.
Because he does say things that bother me. I wish he would keep quiet more often, but I want him to continue doing what he's doing, so I'm willing to accept his flaws. And to compare him that he was a sexual predator or something about the E. Jean Carroll stuff is, fortunately, I've been gifted with an IQ of more than 10, and I've done some research, and when the government changes things like statutes of limitations for 1 year just to get one guy, and then with her testimony, she was an idiot to begin with, and this is what they're using as like a badge to put it against Donald Trump. Like, it was just ridiculous. That whole trial was a joke.
Absolutely ridiculous. Yep.
Just like his fraud trial with Mar-a-Lago. What a joke. The Democrats are idiots. Unfortunately, I'm sorry to say that, because they're the ones that keep taking all the money out of the citizens' pockets. It's got to stop, and Donald Trump, as many flaws as he has, I don't know anybody else willing to stand up there like a target all the time.
We are so fortunate that he put up with, and that his ego is such that he put up with what he had to put up with to come back. And this second presidency is going to be more positively consequential than even his first administration. And he, as long as he finishes the job in Iran, he's actually going to prevent, within our lifetime for sure, World War III and apocalypse that Iran was going to bring to us.
I truly believe that after this is all said and done and my grandchildren have children, I think that once the truth comes out, he's going to go down as the best president in history.
He's up there. There's not a doubt about it. There's not a doubt about it. And the never have the crosswinds and the resistance from lunatic left and from evil been as stout and difficult to overcome. And he's doing it. It's amazing.
Yeah, yep. And no, you're right when you say evil, because the outcome of what these Democrats have allowed with all the immigrants coming in and the rapes and robberies, and it's just.
And by the way, the vast majority, Bob, of the Democrat Party and Democrat people registered Democrat are normal. They may differ with us on certain things, but they've allowed this to happen and have sick brains like the Swalwells, Adam Schiff's, Nancy Pelosi's, Chuck Schumer's, take over their part, Elizabeth Warren. You go through the list, and it's like there's not one redeeming quality in any of them. These are the people who defended and kept Joe Biden in the presidency and then had the nerve to support Kamala Harris. It's insanity. It's insanity.
What a joke that was. I just can't laugh enough about it. And, I'm hoping the midterms, all the crap you read online. Oh, Donald Trump's numbers are plummeting, and they were so sad they voted for him and all this stuff. And I'm like, well, everybody I know that we talk about it, nobody's wants him out of office. They usually agree with me. He says things
But
that we
our
wish he didn't.
people do not get out and vote in non-presidential years, and we better change it this year, or we will lose to a demented leadership of Democrats. We will.
Yeah.
I mean, it's scary stuff. Thank you, my
sure
man.
hope-
I appreciate it,
I
Bob.
hope that doesn't happen.
Listen,
I
if it gets to your outrage level, you call in anytime. All right.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
All right, man.
You have a good
Thank
day.
you. Hey, let's go to Frank in Old Forge. Frank, how are you, brother?
Bob, I'm going to give you the bad news. Just attended the Lackawanna County Commissioners meeting, and the vote to make Lackawanna County a sanctuary county and not cooperate with ICE. Tom Welby voted yes. Billy Gahan voted yes. And Chris Chermak voted no. So,
My God.
Not what I hoped.
I said this about, I was saying it in the primary. I said, unfortunately, and I really like Tom Welby, and he's
Me
a
too.
good-hearted guy.
Yep.
But I said the pressure of the left-wing lunatics, he will collapse to it, and that's
did.
why you can't allow a second Democrat seat there. What a disgrace. That's a disgrace.
Yep. And speaking in opposition were three people: myself, Mike Giannetta, and another gentleman.
Well,
The
there was
rest-
nobody paying you.
True, Bob.
Yeah.
And we're trying to save our own money. And I told him the fact that, look, you don't want 10 ICE agents in a neighborhood looking for one guy. Why not, when they're on a detainer in the jail, just hand them over?
Yep.
You don't have to make a proclamation. You don't have to have any. You just cooperate.
Frank, think about it. Why do they want it this way? Why does little Billy Gone, the boy king, want it this way? Because it causes problems in the community. Because they could then exploit it. Because they don't want illegal criminals kicked out of this country. They need the bodies.
They need the bodies. They need the votes. In fact, Al Schmidt, Secretary of State, Pennsylvania, controls elections, just said himself that illegal alien pedophiles, these guys are illegal, convicted of pedophilia, and they're voting. That's a security risk for the state, the nation, the sovereignty. And, Bob, in the end, we're paying for all this stuff.
Yep.
So, you know what? Right.
That's why I can't vote. There's very few Democrats I could vote for. And
Tom Welby's no longer one of them.
Because of that exact reason, they cave to the lunacy sooner or later. Thanks, Frank. I'm happy to.
You're welcome, Bob.
Well, thank you for informing us. We're not happy to hear it. All right. We've got to take a break. Bob Cordaro, WILK, Lackawanna County, continues to confound common sense and reality. And we'll bring up another instance of it, the Biden banner, when we come back. Our Veterans Tribute this hour and every hour, this day and every day. Patriotically, loyally, solidly. Brought to you by our man, John Basiliga. Today, we feature another one of his great companies, Serenity Care. A senior care living community with facilities at Mid-Valley of Lackawanna County, Old Forge, Wyoming, and Kingston. Personal care services at all 4 dementia care units at the Mid-Valley and Kingston locations. All-inclusive monthly rent. These locations have been completely renovated. They are the class and the gold standard for senior living. Spacious activity rooms, the all-inclusive monthly rent, top shelf food, you name it. They are the gold standard. Serenity Care, senior community. Lawrence Wolcheski. We lost him March 20th. He was from Hazel Township. He was 81. Born in Hazleton, an Army veteran who served during the Vietnam War. Tragically, predeceasing him a grandson, Zachary Smith, in 2020. Surviving his wife for 35 years, the former Cynthia Holloman. 4 children, 13 grandchildren, 10 great-grandchildren. A great legacy. Lawrence Wolcheski. Larry Long. We lost him at age 79. He was from West Main Street in Bloomsburg. He served this country during the Vietnam War. Lifelong resident of Bloomsburg, a 1966 graduate of the Bloomsburg High School, proudly served his country as a member of the U.S. Air Force during the Vietnam War. Do you notice how many Vietnam vets we're losing? He was employed by Conneer Corp for 30 years, retiring in 2009. Life member, the Valley of Bloomsburg Post 273, American Legion. He was a Legion rider, an avid motorcyclist. Surviving, his wife, the former Rose Carey, with whom he celebrated their 45th wedding anniversary last December. Also surviving him and providing his legacy. 2 sons, a granddaughter and a great-granddaughter, and other family members. Larry Long, our great veterans, brought you this hour by John Basiliga and Serenity Care, the gold standard of senior living in Northeast Pennsylvania. AccuWeather forecast brought to you by our friends at Montage Mountain Resort who are swinging into spring. There's always a reason to go up to Montage Mountain. Always a reason to go hang out. I was talking to a friend of mine. He said, I go up there and I go have a Wagyu burger and a beer, and I just look out at the mountain, and it is fantastic. And I said, you know, I do that too, the Wagyu burger. Well, the forecast they're bringing you today, very warm, periods of clouds and sunshine, thunderstorm in spots late this afternoon. Thunderstorms can bring localized damaging wind gusts, high 84. Tonight, cloudy, a shower and thunderstorm, 63. Tomorrow, very warm, times of clouds and sun. The warmest day of the week, 89, their AccuWeather projects, with a low of 62. Friday, mostly cloudy and warm with a passing shower or 2, high 74, low 52. I was just telling my friend Homer, I want to go to the Marge on Friday, but then Cutie said, no, I got you. You know, Cutie runs the show. So I'm going wherever she said we're going. I think it's a Terra, so I've got no complaints. Saturday, clouds followed by a brightening sky and remaining very warm. High 82, low 53. Sunday, on and off rain and drizzle in the morning. Otherwise cloudy and cooler. 62, low 33. Heard Snedeker tell that we're going to be looking at the 40s on Monday. What a shame. But we're not in Southwest Florida. And That's why Tina Morocco has so much business. And that's your weather. It is currently 76 degrees at Montage Mountain Resorts, the people who brought you that weather. Yeah. This day, 1974, Murph tells us Leonard Skinner released their second studio album called Second Helping, which featured their biggest hit and one of the greatest anthems of all time, Sweet Home, Alabama. Bob Cordaro back with you on the eponymous program. Let's sneak it in here. Let's do it right here, Bulldog. Let's do our Biden banner. We got to get this. Biden banner disgrace, day 121. Contact the Green Ridge Neighbor Association and let them know politely that you're sickened by non-veteran Joe Biden being given a hometown hero banner. It's been hanging for at least 121 days with no end in sight. 10 members of the Green Ridge Neighbor Association, dummy-crats all, voted even after they knew the hometown hero banners were designed for veterans, that the dodging Joe Biden didn't deserve it. And we say, take it down. You're disgracing yourselves and the rest of us. And worse, you're debasing our veterans and their service. Biden banner disgrace, stolen valor, day 121. I like that song. This date, Tax Day 2017, Imagine Dragons had the #1 rock charts hit with that, Believer. And we go right to Mother Teresa, St. Teresa, because I didn't get to it yet. Mary Regina very gently prodding me to remember April 15th. We all have a part to play in God's glorious plans. Even if you write a letter for a blind man, or just sit and listen to someone, or you take the mail for him, or you visit somebody or bring a flower to somebody, or wash clothes for somebody, or clean the house, small things. But these are great things in the eyes of God. St. Teresa, the amazing St. Teresa, for April 15th. And I want to, I don't know if he's getting to listen. He's at the VA. 95-year-old Joe Barna, our Korean War combat veteran we've had on many times. And I urge you to go to the Bob Cordaro show on TV, on YouTube, and watch it. My interview with Joe Barna, a great American. And he's recovering. He's in intensive care at the VA, where they're providing amazing care for him, by the way. So, important stuff. All right. Gary from Mill City's been very patient. Gary, how are you, brother?
Good, Bob. How are you? Thanks for taking my call. A couple of comments on that whole Eric Swalwell deal.
Yeah. Doesn't the
Eric
name even
Swalwell-
sound scummy, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. Scumbag who should have been expelled from Congress for his affair with a foreign spy, a
Yep.
Chinese spy, was on the Intelligence Committee and the Judicial Committee after that, and they still held his spots on those committees after that was released.
Yep.
He's a scumbag, and
Well, that
we
gives a
also-
bad name for scumbags. He's beneath that. He's a sociopath.
We also have a Republican from Texas, I believe his name was Salazar, who just resigned
Gonzalez.
from Congress. He had an affair, and the woman burnt herself to death.
And the thing I said, I didn't go into the story much. I don't know if it was related to the affair. I mean, it's a horrible tragedy either way, but.
Okay, he had an affair. I believe she was an officer, a campaign worker.
She was in his staff.
I called Congressman Breslin and Muser's offices yesterday, and I requested Congress has a slush fund to pay for these cases where women they have a slush fund. Now, if Eric Swalwell used that slush fund, there are women that could have been saved from Eric Swalwell. Same with the other gentleman, the Republican. That should be made public, and it should be done away with.
Nancy Mace from South Carolina is the one trying to lead that. She couldn't even get a co-sponsor.
Well, if people don't want to sponsor that bill, lots of them must have something to hide. And one quick thing, and that's Somalian fraud in Minnesota. The Attorney General, Keith Ellison, just a guy, $130 or $150 million Somalian fraud, he left the country.
Yep.
Now, how are you arrested, let out on bail, and you still have your passport, or you're not put on a no-fly list?
Yep.
These people are covering for themselves, and we have to get this scum out of our government, both parties, all levels. Thank you for your time.
Amen, Gary. Well, we're finishing today one of my favorite songs, one of my favorite guys. Roy Orbison, his last solo hit, You Got It, reached the top 10 charts at number 8, Murph tells us. This date, 1989, 4 months after his death. Co-written by Jeff Lynne and Tom Petty of the Traveling Wilburys. It was his part of his big comeback album, Mystery Girl, and then we lost him. Roy Orbison. Well, let's let him finish things. Guys, great to be with you. You know that. I love it. I love it. Can't get enough, but it is enough. I got to go. My Bacardo Jeweler watch tells me we're coming up on noon. That means Sue Henry show next, Rob O'Donnell after that, and God willing, I'll be back with you tomorrow morning because this fight never ends. Have a great afternoon, guys. Listen to Roy on the way out because we are adjourned.